My sister stole my son's $131,000 heart surgery fund and told me our dream vacation is more important than your brat. My parents took her side, so I called the police, had them all arrested. I'm 31, male, a lineman working for the electric company, pulling down about $75,000 a year, climbing poles and fixing power lines that most people don't even notice until they're down. Single dad to my 8-year-old Connor after his mom decided motherhood wasn't fulfilling her artistic journey and moved to Portland with some wannabe musician. Connor was born with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. Basically, the left side of his heart didn't develop properly. Imagine trying to pump blood through your entire body with half an engine. The kid's been through more doctor visits than most people have in their lifetime. But he's a tough little dude. Never complains, just deals with getting winded walking upstairs and turning blue around his lips when he pushes too hard. For the past 6 years, I've been saving every penny I could squeeze out of my paycheck for the Norwood procedure, a 3-stage heart surgery that would basically rebuild his cardiovascular system. Stage 1 and 2 were covered by insurance when he was a baby. Stage 3, the final surgery that would give him a normal life. Insurance decided it was elective because he wasn't literally dying right this second. Price tag $127,000. Yeah, you read that right. $127,000 to give my kid a chance at playing sports, running around, maybe not worrying about dropping dead before his 10th birthday. So I grinded, worked every overtime shift available, picked up weekend emergency calls, even did side work installing electrical for new construction on my days off. My truck's got 180,000 meters and sounds like a diesel tractor, but it runs. Moved us into a cheaper apartment that's basically a concrete box with windows, but it's clean and safe. By September, I had $131,847 sitting in a high-yield savings account that my sister Madison, 33 female, had helped me set up during her brief stint working at a credit union. Madison's always been the golden child. Looks like she stepped off a magazine cover and somehow convinced everyone she's an entrepreneur, even though her businesses change more often than most people change their underwear. Currently, she's into some wellness coaching thing with her boyfriend Billy, who talks about energy alignment and charges people $200 an hour to tell them their chakras are blocked. 2 weeks before Connor's surgery, October 15th, the date I'd been counting down to for months, I logged into my account to initiate the hospital payment. Screen loaded, balance $47.83. I refreshed the page 6 times thinking the website was glitching. Called the bank's 24-hour line. Gave them my account number, social mother's maiden name, the whole 9 yards. The rep confirmed what I was seeing. Wire transfer executed 3 days prior. Amount $131,799.17. Authorized with proper 2-factor authentication from a recognized device. The transfer went to an account in the Cayman Islands. Only one person besides me had ever had access to that account. Only one person knew my security questions because she'd helped me set them up. The same person who'd been posting Instagram stories from Turks and Caicos for the past week. I sat in my truck outside the bank for 20 minutes, engine running, just staring at my phone screen. My kid's one shot at a normal life gone stolen by the person I'd trusted most after him. That's when I decided Madison was about to learn that some people don't just roll over when you screw with their family. Madison and Billy got back from their island paradise on a Tuesday. I know because I'd been checking her social media obsessively, watching them blow my son's surgery money on parasailing private beach dinners and bottles of champagne that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I didn't tell Connor what happened. Kid's been looking forward to this surgery for months, talking about joining the school basketball team afterward, asking if he'll finally be able to swim without getting tired. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that his aunt stole his chance at a normal life for a vacation? Instead, I told him I had to run some errands and dropped him off with Finn, my best friend since high school, and the only person in my life who's never let me down. Finn works construction, understands what it means to bust your ass for your family, and didn't ask questions when I showed up at his door looking like I was about to commit murder. Just keep Connor busy for a few hours, I told him. I need to handle something. Finn took one look at my face and nodded. You need backup. Not yet. Cool. When you decide to bury the bodies, I know a guy with a backhoe. The drive to Madison's place felt like forever and no time at all. She lives in one of those luxury apartment complexes with a doorman and valet parking. I knew the access code because I'd helped her move in last year when she was between financial situations. I didn't knock, used the spare key she'd given me for emergencies, walked right into their penthouse apartment and found them unpacking designer luggage, talking and laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. Madison saw me first, froze with a Louis Vuitton bag halfway out of a suitcase. Expensive sunglasses still pushed up on her head. Oh, Tommy. Perfect timing. Actually, I was going to call you later. She didn't even look guilty. If anything, she looked annoyed that I'd interrupted her. Billy and I had the most amazing revelation on our trip. We realized that hoarding money creates negative energy blocks. The universe was telling us to redistribute that stagnant wealth. Where's my money, Madison? She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled her eyes. God, Tommy, you're so dramatic. It's not your money, it's family money, and we invested it in experiences and spiritual growth, which benefits everyone in the long run. Billy stepped up behind her, all 6 feet 2 inches of yoga-sculpted privilege. Dude, your whole vibe right now is super toxic. I was across the room before either of them could blink. Got right in Billy's face. Close enough that he could probably smell the rage coming off me in waves. You want to talk about toxic? Let's talk about stealing $130,000 from a sick kid. First of all, Madison said, examining her manicure like we were discussing the weather. Connor's not dying. He's been fine for 8 years. This surgery is basically cosmetic at this point. You just want him to be perfect instead of accepting him as he is. Cosmetic. I spun around so fast she actually stumbled backward. He can't walk upstairs without collapsing. He turns blue when he runs, and that makes him special and unique, she said, with that condescending tone she'd perfected in college. But you're too shallow to appreciate that. You'd rather spend a fortune trying to make him normal instead of celebrating his differences. Billy nodded along like she'd said something profound. Madison's right, man. Your attachment to conventional ideas of health is really limiting your growth as a parent. I shoved Billy hard enough to send him stumbling into their granite kitchen island. Don't even think about giving me parenting advice, pretty boy. This is between me and my thieving sister. It's not theft when it's redistributing family wealth, Madison said. But she was backing toward the sliding glass doors now. Honestly, Tommy, I'm disappointed in how selfish you've become. You've been hoarding that money for years while Billy and I have been struggling. Struggling, I shouted loud enough that their upstairs neighbors probably heard it. You live in a penthouse. You drive a BMW. You spend more on skincare than I spend on groceries. That's completely different, she sniffed. That's maintaining our image so we can attract abundance. What you were doing was just greed. Billy tried to put himself between us again. Big mistake. I grabbed him by his shirt, twisted it up in my fist, and slammed him against the wall, hard enough to knock a picture frame loose. Your girlfriend just called saving for my son's surgery greed. You want to defend that? Look, maybe Connor doesn't need to be fixed, Billy said, his voice shaking now. Maybe the universe gave him that heart condition for a reason. I saw red. Literally saw red. This piece of crap was telling me my son's heart defect was some kind of cosmic lesson plan. Say that again. I dare you. Tell me again that my kid is supposed to suffer because the universe planned it. Madison stepped forward, like she was doing me a favor. Tommy, we're trying to help you. This obsession with fixing Connor is really just about your own ego. You can't accept that you have an imperfect child. Perfect. I let go of Billy and turned back to her. Your healing trip just killed my son's chance at a normal life. Do you get that? The surgery was scheduled for next week. Next week? And now I have to call the hospital and tell them we can't pay. Madison shrugged. There will be other opportunities. You're young. You can save again. But Billy and I needed this trip right now. Our chakras were completely blocked and we were on the verge of a spiritual breakdown. He's 8 years old. Madison 8. He doesn't have time for me to save again. This was it. This was his shot. You're being so dramatic, she said, waving her hand dismissively. Connor will be fine. Kids are resilient. But if Billy and I had waited any longer for our healing journey, we might have had permanent spiritual damage. I looked around their apartment. The imported furniture, the wine collection, the electronic gadgets scattered around like toys, all bought with money that was supposed to give my kid a future. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice deadly quiet now. You're going to wire every penny back to my account today right now, or I'm calling the police and pressing charges. Madison laughed. Actually laughed at me. Oh, please, Tommy. You're not going to call the police on your own sister. That's not how our family works. Besides, what we did wasn't really illegal. It was more like an unauthorized loan. Watch me. I pulled out my phone and started dialing 911. Wait. Billy grabbed my arm. Another mistake. I jerked away and got right back in his face. Touch me again and you'll be eating hospital food through a straw. The money's gone, Madison said, like she was telling me it was raining outside. Most of it anyway. The resort was $3,000 a night. The flights were first class. We did some shopping on the way back. We deserved to experience luxury for once. I stared at them for a full 10 seconds, letting that sink in. Then you just destroyed your nephew's life for a vacation you'll forget about in 6 months. Oh, stop being so melodramatic, Madison said, rolling her eyes again. Connor will survive. I survived plenty of disappointments as a child, and look how successful I am now. I didn't say another word. Walked out of their apartment down to the lobby and called the police from my truck. Gave them all the account information, transaction details, everything I had. By the time I got back to Finn's place to pick up Connor, there was already a detective assigned to the case. Finn was waiting on his porch with Connor, who was playing with Finn's dog and looking happier than he had in weeks. How'd it go? Finn asked quietly. She spent it all, called Connor surgery cosmetic, and said his heart condition makes him spiritually special. Finn stared at me for a second, then shook his head. Your sister's dumber than a box of rocks, isn't she? And that's insulting to the rocks. The next morning I called my parents. Had to write, your daughter just stole $130,000 from her grandson's surgery fund. Surely they'd be as horrified as any decent human being would be. Surely they'd want to help fix this disaster. Yeah, I'm an idiot, Dad answered on the second ring. I laid out everything. Told him about Connor's surgery being canceled, about the detective, about the charges I was filing. Long silence. Then son Madison called us this morning. She explained the whole situation. I think you're misunderstanding what happened here. Misunderstanding. Dad, she admitted to stealing the money. Now hold on. That's not how she tells it. Madison says you've been hoarding that money for years, never sharing with family when people needed help. She says you refused to lend her money for her business multiple times, so she was forced to take matters into her own hands. I had to pull over. Actually had to stop driving because I couldn't see straight. Forced Dad. She stole my son's surgery money to go on vacation. Well, maybe if you'd been more generous with family over the years, this wouldn't have happened. Madison's been struggling financially while you've had over $100,000 just sitting in an account. That doesn't seem very fair. Connor could die without this surgery. Madison's career of scamming people with chakra readings. Mom got on the phone next, already crying. Tommy, sweetheart. Madison explained everything to us. She said, you've been using Connor's condition to guilt the family into giving you money for years. And when we stopped falling for it, you started hoarding everything for yourself. What, Mom? I never asked any of you for money. I've been working overtime for 6 years to save this. Well, Madison says that's not true. She says you've been manipulating everyone with soba stories about Connor. And when she finally stood up to you, you decided to get revenge by involving the police. She spent the money on vacation, Mom, luxury resorts, and shopping. Madison says Connor doesn't really need this surgery. She says you're just trying to make him perfect because you can't accept having a special needs child. Mom, he can't breathe properly. He turns blue when he exercises. Well, maybe that's just how God made him, honey. I hung up because I could feel my brain starting to short circuit. I drove straight to Finn's house because I needed someone sane to talk to before I completely lost it. Finn was in his garage working on his motorcycle when I pulled up, took one look at my face, and set down his wrench. Let me guess, your parents took Princess Madison's side. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Dad again. Son, your mother and I have been talking. We think the best solution is for you to drop the charges and work this out as a family. Madison's willing to pay you back over time, but only if you stop this legal nonsense. Over time, the surgery was supposed to be next week. Well, maybe Connor's supposed to stay the way he is. You know what, Dad, screw all of you. None of you give a damn about my kid. I hung up again. Finn shook his head. Your family's got more screws loose than my motorcycle after a collision, and that's saying something. That afternoon, I got a text from Madison. Mom and Dad explained how hurt you are. I'm willing to forgive you for overreacting and calling the police if you're ready to have a conversation about this. Finn showed up at my apartment the morning after I hung up on half my family carrying coffee and wearing the kind of determined expression that meant he'd been thinking all night. All right, here's the plan, he said before I could even say good morning. I talked to my boss. The company's got an emergency hardship fund for employees, covers medical stuff when insurance falls short. It's not enough for the whole surgery, but it's a start. Finn, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling. Connor's getting that surgery. Turns out Finn had been busy. He'd called his church. The guy goes to some mega church that actually does useful stuff with their money. Reached out to the local electricians union about their benevolent fund. Even contacted the Children's Hospital about payment plans and charitable programs. By noon, we had a plan. The hospital's financial aid program would cover about 40% if we could prove hardship. Finn's company fund would kick in another $25,000. The union's emergency assistance program was good for $15,000 more. The church was organizing a fundraiser that could potentially raise another chunk. Still left us about $30,000 short, but the hospital agreed to let Connor have the surgery if we could pay half up front and set up a payment plan for the rest. High interest, brutal terms, but doable with my overtime income. Connor's surgery got rescheduled for the following Tuesday. I filed the police report that Friday. The detectives seemed like good people. Thorough professional. Genuinely pissed off when I explained how the money had been stolen. Told me financial crimes against family members were some of the most sickening cases she dealt with. People think because they're related the rules don't apply, she said. But theft is theft regardless of DNA. She also told me that offshore transfers were federal crimes FBI territory. Madison wasn't just looking at state charges anymore. When I told Finn about the federal charges, he grinned. Oh man, Madison's about to find out that orange really isn't the new black. It's just orange. Monday night, Finn stayed over so he could drive us to the hospital in the morning. We ordered pizza, watched some movies with Connor, tried to keep things normal, even though I was internally freaking out about my kid going under the knife. Around 10 p.m. after Connor was asleep, Finn and I were sitting on my balcony. And he asked the question I'd been dreading. You heard from your family at all? Yeah, they want me to drop the charges because Madison's willing to forgive my overreaction. Finn nearly choked on his drink. She's willing to forgive you? Apparently I'm being selfish and vindictive by involving the police in a family disagreement. Jesus Christ, Tommy. These people are more delusional than flat earthers. And that's saying something because at least flat earthers have seen the ground. Surgery day was surreal. We had to be at the hospital at 5 a.m. for pre-op prep. Connor was nervous but trying to be brave, asking questions about the anesthesia, whether he'd have a big scar if the doctors had steady hands. Finn stayed through the entire 6-hour procedure. Sat in that uncomfortable waiting room fetching coffee, playing cards, making terrible jokes to keep me from losing my mind. Never once complained, never acted like he had somewhere else to be. You know what the difference is between your sister and a parking meter? Finn asked around 3 o'clock. What a parking meter actually gives you something useful for your money. Around hour 4, my phone buzzed. Text from Madison. I heard Connor's having surgery today. Sending light and love from Billy and me. We're manifesting perfect healing energy for him. Light and love from the woman who'd stolen his surgery money. I showed Finn the message. He read it and shook his head. Want me to respond? Already did. I'd blocked her number too. Finn looked at the blocked message notification. Good call. Although I would have sent back manifest yourself some bail money. You're gonna to need it. At 2:47 p.m., the doctor came out still wearing his surgical scrubs, looking tired but smiling. The surgery went perfectly. Connor's heart is functioning better than we dared hope. Recovery will take a few weeks, but he's going to have a completely normal life. Finn pumped his fist like his team had just won the Super Bowl. Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Take that, universe. The kid woke up around 6 p.m., groggy from anesthesia but already breathing easier. The difference was immediate. Dad, I feel like I can breathe with my whole body, he whispered. My phone stayed silent all evening. No calls from my parents asking how their grandson was doing. No texts from Madison checking on her nephew. No family members who'd suddenly remembered Connor existed but Finn was there. Sometimes friendship is worth more than DNA. The detective called me 3 days after Connor's surgery. Kid was home recovering color, finally looking normal, actually excited about starting physical therapy. I was sitting on the couch and finally relaxing for the first time in weeks when my phone rang. Mr. Brown, I think you need to come down to the station. We've uncovered some things about your sister's activities that go way beyond what you reported. Turns out, Madison hadn't just stolen my money. She'd been running a whole operation. The cybersecurity team that worked with the police had traced her digital footprint going back months. The offshore account wasn't her first rodeo. She'd been accessing other family members' financial information for over a year. My cousin Lisa's identity had been used to open credit cards. My Uncle Robert's business account had suspicious small withdrawals that he'd written off his bank fees. Your sister is looking at multiple counts of identity theft, wire fraud, and financial exploitation, she explained, spreading printouts across her desk. This isn't just family drama anymore. This is organized criminal activity. The evidence was overwhelming. Screenshots of her conversations with Billy planning the family fund redistribution. Their words, not mine. Browser history showing she'd researched how to hide money in offshore accounts. Even security camera footage from the credit union where she used to work showing her accessing customer files after hours. Finn had insisted on coming with me to this meeting. Good thing too, because I was ready to explode all over again. So what happens now? I asked. Federal charges are being filed this week. Your case is just the tip of the iceberg, but it's the most serious because of the amount stolen and the circumstances. The prosecutor is particularly motivated when crimes involve stealing from children's medical funds. Finn leaned back in his chair. Madison went from wellness coach to federal criminal. That's like the world's worst career pivot. Even LinkedIn wouldn't know how to spin that. My phone had been ringing constantly for 2 days, not from Madison or my parents, but from other family members who were suddenly discovering their own financial irregularity. Apparently, word was spreading that Madison's investment advice and financial planning help had been covers for systematic theft. Cousin Lisa called crying because she'd found out her credit score was destroyed. Uncle Robert discovered his business account was $8,000 short over the past 6 months. Even my Aunt Sarah realized that the bank error that had wiped out her vacation fund wasn't an error at all. But here's the thing that really got me fired up. My parents knew. The detective showed me text messages the FBI had recovered from Madison's phone. Messages between her and my mother dated 3 weeks before Connor's surgery. Madison, the money transfer went through. Tommy will never notice until it's too late. Mom, good. Maybe this will teach him not to be so stingy with family. You and Billy deserve that vacation. Madison. Exactly. Connor doesn't really need that surgery anyway. Tommy's just being dramatic as usual. Mom, your father and I agree. We're tired of him using Connor to manipulate everyone. You did the right thing. They didn't just know, they encouraged it. They thought Madison was teaching me a lesson about being selfish with money. Finn read those messages over my shoulder and went absolutely ballistic. Started using language that would make a sailor blush. The detective had to ask him to step outside for a minute. When he came back, Finn was shaking his head. Your parents are dumber than a bag of hammers. And I apologize to hammers everywhere for that comparison. I want to press charges against my parents too. I told her when Finn left. Conspiracy or accessory or whatever you call it when someone helps plan a crime. The texts definitely show knowledge and encouragement, but proving legal conspiracy is harder. However, they could be called as witnesses in Madison's trial, and these messages would be evidence. That was enough for me. My parents wanted to protect Madison's reputation. Perfect. Let them explain to a federal court why they thought helping steal from their grandson was good family values. I authorized the detective to pursue every possible charge. No mercy, no family discounts, no consideration for keeping things quiet. Madison had declared war on my son's future. Now she was going to face the consequences. Finn came back in looking calmer, but still furious. So when do they arrest her? Federal agents are executing warrants tomorrow morning. Ms. Brown and Mr. Billy will both be taken into custody. Finn grinned. Oh, this is going to be good. Madison's about to learn that federal prison doesn't have a juice bar or yoga classes. I wish I could say I felt bad about it. I wish I could say some part of me was sad about my sister getting arrested, but all I felt was satisfaction. Cold, hard satisfaction. You don't steal from kids with heart conditions and get to walk away unscathed. Not in my world. The detective called at 7:23 a.m. Connor was eating breakfast. Actually eating without getting tired halfway through when my phone rang. They're in custody, both of them. FBI executed warrants at 6 a.m. What happens next? Arraignment this afternoon. They'll probably try to post bail, but given the flight risk and offshore accounts, the prosecutors requesting they be held pending trial. Finn had stayed over again last night because Connor still needed help with some basic stuff while his chest healed. He was making coffee when I hung up, and I just nodded at him. It's done. Finn grinned like Christmas morning. About damn time. Madison's about to find out that orange jumpsuits don't come in designer brands. The news hit social media within hours. Apparently, federal arrests are public record, and Madison's former boss at the credit union had friends who worked in law enforcement. By noon, everyone in our extended family knew that the golden child was sitting in federal lockup. My phone started buzzing like a beehive. Cousins, aunts, uncles, family, friends. Suddenly, everyone wanted to talk to me. Suddenly, everyone was so sorry and had no idea and always thought something was off about Madison. Funny how that works. When she was stealing from me, it was family business that should be handled quietly. When she got arrested by federal agents, suddenly everyone had opinions about what a terrible person she was. I didn't answer any of them. The silence from my parents was deafening. No calls, no texts, no concerned voicemails, just complete radio silence. That evening, Finn and I were watching TV, while Connor did his breathing exercises, part of his recovery routine, when someone knocked on the door, hard knocking, aggressive knocking. Billy's parents. I opened the door to find two people who looked like they just lost their life savings. Billy's dad was red-faced and sweating. "You destroyed our son's life," she said, before I could even say hello. "Your son destroyed my son's life first. He just got caught." Billy's dad stepped forward, trying to intimidate me. Bad move. I've been working around high-voltage power lines for 12 years. Suburban dads and polo shirts don't scare me. Billy said that money belonged to the whole family. Madison explained how you've been hoarding it while everyone else struggled. Actually, I had every right. It's called ownership. The money was mine. They stole it. Now they're in jail. Simple math. But Billy's business is ruined. His clients are abandoning him. You could have just worked this out privately. Finn appeared behind me. Yeah, because nothing says private family matter like federal wire fraud charges. You might want to get Billy a lawyer instead of harassing his victims. He should have thought about that before he spent stolen money on vacation. Billy's mom started crying. Madison told us you've been using Connor's condition to manipulate the family for years. She said, you refused to help anyone else and just kept hoarding money out of greed. Finn stepped forward. Lady, your son helped steal surgery money from an 8-year-old with a heart condition. Maybe don't take family advice from people facing federal charges. I looked at these people who'd completely bought into Madison's narrative even after their son got arrested for federal crimes. Ma'am, your son helped steal $130,000 from my 8-year-old's medical fund. Madison could tell you the moon is made of cheese, but that doesn't make your son any less of a thief. I closed the door. Finn was standing behind me, shaking his head. Those people are more delusional than anti-vaxxers at a measles convention. That night, my parents finally called, not to check on Connor, not to apologize, but to yell at me for destroying the family. Madison's in jail because of you, Dad said. Our daughter is sitting in a cell while you're at home feeling satisfied with yourself. Your daughter is sitting in a cell because she committed federal crimes. She made a mistake. Family is supposed to forgive mistakes, not destroy each other over them. Stealing $130,000 from a sick child isn't a mistake. Mom got on the phone crying. Tommy, Madison says the other inmates are being mean to her. She's not built for this environment. Please just drop the charges and let her come home. She should have thought about that before she robbed her nephew. Stop saying that. I hung up and blocked their numbers too. 6 months later, Connor's running around like a normal kid, playing soccer, riding his bike, doing all the things he could never do before. The surgery was a complete success. Kids got energy I didn't even know was possible. And his cardiologist says his heart function is now in the normal range. Madison and Billy's trial was everything I'd hoped for and more. The prosecutor didn't mess around. Federal court, wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, financial exploitation of a vulnerable person. The evidence was overwhelming. Digital trails, bank records, those text messages between Madison and my parents, witness testimony from other family members she'd stolen from. Madison tried to play the victim card right up until sentencing. Her lawyer argued she was under emotional distress, that family financial arrangements were complicated, that she'd been guided by spiritual principles to redistribute wealth inequality within the family unit. Even during her own trial, Madison remained completely unrepentant. When asked by the prosecutor why she stole Connor's surgery money, she said, "I was helping my brother release his attachment to material possessions. Children with heart conditions are often spiritually gifted, and surgical intervention can interfere with their karmic development." Finn was sitting in the gallery and whispered, "This lady's nuttier than a squirrel's breakfast." The judge looked at her like she'd grown a second head. Billy's testimony was even worse. He claimed they'd invested the funds in healing energy that would benefit the entire family system. And when pressed about specific expenses, Billy proudly listed first-class flights, luxury resort stays, and $3,000 worth of consciousness, expanding crystals as legitimate investments in family healing modalities. Finn leaned over. $3,000 for rocks. I could have gotten him the same spiritual experience by hitting him in the head with a brick for free. The judge wasn't buying any of it. Ms. Brown. He said during sentencing, "You systematically stole money earmarked for a child's life-saving surgery, then spent that money on personal luxuries while justifying your actions with pseudoscientific nonsense. You've shown zero remorse and continue to blame the victim for your crimes. This court finds your actions particularly heinous given the vulnerability of the victim and your complete lack of accountability." Madison got 4 years federal prison, full restitution, and 5 years probation after release. Billy got 3 years as an accessory and for money laundering the stolen funds through his business accounts. But here's where it gets really good. The trial was public record. Local news picked up the story because sister steals nephew's heart surgery money for spiritual vacation is the kind of headline that writes itself. Regional papers ran it. Social media exploded with it. Finn sent me screenshots of the comment section. "Look at this one. Madison is the reason aliens won't visit Earth. And this guy says Billy looks like he gets his business advice from a magic 8-ball. Madison's business evaporated overnight. Turns out people don't want life advice from someone who steals from sick children while claiming it's for their spiritual development." Billy's consulting firm lost every client within 2 weeks of the story breaking. His business partner publicly dissolved their LLC and distanced himself from the whole mess. My parents got dragged through the mud by association. Those text messages became evidence in open court, which meant they became public record. Local papers quoted them directly. Connor doesn't really need that surgery anyway. And maybe this will teach him not to be so stingy with family. The country club they'd belonged to for 15 years quietly asked them not to renew their membership. Dad's golf buddies started avoiding him. Mom's book club kicked her out. Neighbors stopped waving when they drove by. They tried reaching out after the trial, sent Connor a birthday card with a long note about how they'd been misled by Madison's spiritual teachings and wanted to make amends for supporting her misguided actions. I returned it unopened. Finn was with me when the card came back. "You feel bad about that at all?" "Not even a little bit." "Good. They had their chance to be decent grandparents. Instead, they chose to be Madison's enablers. That's like choosing to be a mosquito when you could be a butterfly." The best part? Connor doesn't even remember most of the drama. To him, it's just a story about how he got his surgery and became able to play sports. Last weekend, he scored 2 goals in his soccer game, ran the entire field without stopping, without getting winded, without that blue tinge around his lips that used to terrify me. After the game, he asked if he could try out for the travel team next year. "Can I, Dad?" "I think I'm fast enough now." "Yeah, buddy. I think you're fast enough for anything." Finn was at the game too, cheering louder than anyone. He's been Connor's uncle through this whole thing, never missing a school event or a medical appointment. Madison sitting in federal prison wearing orange jumpsuits while still insisting she was spiritually guided to steal from her nephew. Billy's living in his parents' basement, unemployed and unemployable, telling anyone who will listen that he's a victim of collective consciousness persecution. My parents are paras in their own social circle, known as the people who encourage their daughter to steal surgery money from their grandson. And me, I'm watching my kid run around a soccer field with a perfectly functioning heart surrounded by people who actually give a damn about us. Finn summed it up perfectly. "Your real family is right here, man. Everyone else was just practice. That's enough revenge for Mo."